What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plizzolt's podcast, filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes, so cold that they're boiling hot. In this episode, we are continuing our college football preview, and we're going to be talking about the Utah Utes in this episode, one of my favorite teams in college football. Let's go ahead and get right into the stars. At quarterback, the oldest quarterback in the sport right now, Cam Rising. This guy has been injured over and over and over again, redshirted, the COVID year, you name it. I think this is his 7th season, maybe his 8th season. Goodness gracious, it doesn't matter though, because he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in college football, extremely experienced, multiple-time conference champion. If you're asking for a quarterback that can get the job done, Cam Rising is the guy. Brant Kuth is his favorite target at tight end / I guess the fullback position. There's not really a lot of fullbacks in college football anymore, but this guy's overall a gadget guy. I think he's going to be one of the best targets for Cam Rising this year. And then to pair with him in the skill position group, Dorian Singer, a wide receiver. These two guys are going to be a dynamic duo when it comes to spreading the ball out and getting the ball downfield. Dorian Singer, he is your guy to take the top off the defense. I am a really big fan of this Utah offense, but an even bigger fan of their defense. Let's talk about the stars on defense. Lander Barton, middle linebacker. Although he might not be one of the quote-unquote most talented in the country, man, does this guy know how to get somebody on the ground. I am a really big fan of Kareem Reed, outside linebacker, pass rusher. When it comes to getting to the quarterback, there's not many that can do it like he can. And then last but not least, to stop the run, Junior Tafuna, defensive tackle. All up and down this Utah offensive or defensive line and linebacker unit, you've got stud after stud, one of the best front sevens in the country, one of the best overall defenses in the country. Now, my first storyline that I want to talk about is the fact that this is one of the most talented rosters in college football, and not necessarily from a raw talent perspective, but definitely from an experience perspective. When it comes to knowing what's going to go on the field, I think that this Utah team has the best capability / instincts out of any other team that I've seen, at least that I've previewed so far. Kyle Whittingham is probably a top 10 coach in the league. I think he's closer to top 5, but when it comes to winning, he can do that, and he's done it over the last 20 years here at Utah since taking over in 2005. They've gone 51-23, and a lot of people forget before last season, they were back-to-back conference champions. The one thing that's been missing here at this Utah program over the last 6 years is a bowl victory. They are 0-6 in bowl games, I believe. So Utah is going to get a win somehow, some way in the postseason this year, and I think it's going to come in the college football playoffs. Now let's go ahead and talk about the losses and additions for this unit. On the losses side of things, you got Cole Bishop, a corner that was drafted. I think he was probably the best corner on the team. That's a pretty big loss to me when it comes to being able to defend the pass. But like I said, Utah has got one of the best units. They were able to replace him, I think. And now also on the defensive side of the ball, Jonah Ellis, defensive end, one of the better pass rushers and edge setters for this team. That is another huge loss. Like I said, though, I'm not replaceable. Replaceable is not the right word, but there are people on this team that can take his place. Now, next, you got Jaquindon Jackson, a running back that actually hits the transfer portal, even though he led the team in rushing last year, and heads to Arkansas. Not sure what that's about. I'm guessing there's some dollar signs behind that, but he leaves Utah. And then on the addition side of things, the only one of note is Keenan Johnson. Now, this guy wouldn't be of note if he was going anywhere else, but he's a 6th-year senior coming to Utah. That is exactly what Kyle Whittingham is looking for every single time he gets somebody either in the portal or some other shape, way, or form. This guy is something of note because he's going to be in the starting lineup. 6-year senior, lots of experience, played a lot last year, so that's one of Kyle Whittingham's guys. Now, a couple of other storylines that I want to talk about before we get into the record prediction. We've got a new outlook for Utah in the college football sphere. Utah used to be a big fish in I would guess a lake, but now they've been placed in a pond and they are ready to dominate. Like I said earlier, I haven't seen a program sustain this amount of success over this long period of time outside of, the blue blood programs like Ohio State, Alabama. Utah, I would not describe as a blue blood college football program. The fact that they've been able to, beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl in 2008 and now 15 years later be the favorite to win the Big 12. That is really exciting for me when it comes to college football. I like to see smaller market, teams succeed over long periods of time because it shows that the sport is not completely transformed by the new age of college football, although I am a fan of the new age of college football. Back to my main point. This is a new outlook for this team. They have a chance to absolutely dominate their new conference for the next 10 to 15 years, and I think they're going to do exactly that as long as you have Kyle Whittingham or somebody in his staff to take the reins. This is the program to look out for in the Big 12. Last but not least, they got a gift from the football gods this year. They only have to play one of the top 5 Big 12 teams. Now, of course, they are one of the teams, but they only have to play Oklahoma State, which is a godsend for this team because they need the easiest schedule they can get to stay the healthiest, as well as win all of their games and get to the college football playoff. Because, in my opinion, there's no guarantee if they go 11-1 that they'll make the college football playoff. They got to win their Big 12 championship game. Because last year, we saw a team win the ACC championship and be undefeated and miss the playoffs. Now, yes, that was the 4 team, but with a smaller conference like the Big 12 and you have an 11-1 team versus a 10-2 team per se from the SEC or the Big 10, the College Football Playoff Committee could easily take one of those 10-2 teams. But I digress. Let's go ahead and get into the record prediction. For Utah, they start off their season extremely easy. Southern Utah, Baylor at home, at Utah State. They're not leaving the state of Utah. All 3 of those games are wins for me. Their toughest game of the season at Oklahoma State. I said Utah has got one of the best front sevens in the country. I meant it. And Ollie Gordon is not going to have a field day on this team. They're going to go ahead, go into Oklahoma State's house and get a win. They come back and they host Arizona. This is probably their second toughest game on the schedule just because Arizona can spread the ball out. And I think that might be a problem for Utah, especially when they go up against talented rosters like Arizona. But home field advantage, I like Cam Rising almost as much as I like Noah Fafita. I will still give Utah the win because of home field advantage. At Arizona State, their rebuilding program, that's a win. Versus TCU at home, once again, home field advantage, quarterback advantage, defensive advantage, Utah. At Houston, another rebuilding program, that is another win. Versus BYU, that is yet another win. Not having to leave your home stadium, having BYU come into town, that is another win. The third toughest game on the schedule, at Colorado. Now, Colorado, I expect their season will probably be on the fritz here, or on the fringe, I guess. I don't think they're going to be able to be that competitive. Utah is far more experienced and talented than they are. Even though it's on the road, even though I might like Shedeur Sanders a little bit more, I will give Utah the win because of their defensive talent. Hosting Iowa State at home next game, I like that matchup for Utah. They could put the ball on the ground. Unlike Iowa State, though, I don't know how dynamic their defense is. I will give them the home field advantage, the defensive advantage. That is a win for Utah. And then last but not least, at UCF. Now, Utah is far more talented than UCF, but this is a sneaky game because they're having to travel all the way from Utah to South Florida for the last game of the year. I imagine their team is going to be a little beat up. They might not be ready to go all the way to the East Coast. They've got to make the time adjustment. Regardless, I think that they can win that game, but I will say it is a sneaky upset alert. They could be sleeping on this UCF team, who I think is way better than their record is going to be. So 12-0, getting to the Big 12 championship game, a chance at a college football playoff berth. If they win the game, it's a lock. If they don't, I still think that they have a good chance at 12-1 to get into the college football playoff. But that is going to do it for this episode. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the like button, the comment button. It helps me continue making these videos. I appreciate all of you for watching. We will see you next time.